What's up, everybody, and welcome back. We are here with some more PGA DFS picks and lineup advice. This time for the Waste Management Phoenix Open out in Scottsdale, Arizona. Welcome, I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, here to help you with your FanDuel and DraftKings lineups for this week's PGA DFS slate. Before we get started, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Get notified when we go live, upload any new videos. Give us a thumbs up if you appreciate the content. Any questions, we'll monitor the YouTube channel throughout the rest of the evening, and we'll get back to you before the slate begins early Thursday morning. Now, we're back to a normal event, thankfully. So what we're going to do here in this video, brief video, 10 to 12 minutes, we're going to talk about the weather, if any, and how it impacts the DFS slate. We'll talk about what the betting markets are telling us, one of the best segments of this show every single week. And we'll talk about the ownership. Who are some of the chalky players? How is the field playing this event? And who are some lower owned options that can help us win tournaments? So let's get started. So looking at the weather and looking at the event in general first. Thankfully, we do have a normal event back and it's a star-studded field. Tons of big name players, players at the top of the world rankings in this event. A very stark contrast from the events we've been seeing to start the year, where we've had multi-course rotations, we've had amateurs, we've had some of the bigger names sitting out. But this is about as close to as a major as you'll get as far as talent in the field. And the ownership and the way we play that is going to be reflected. So looking at the weather itself, I'm going to bring up Wind Finder. Again, this is out in Scottsdale, Arizona. And if we look at when the event starts on Thursday morning, and again, this is Wind Finder. This is their super forecast. We actually see the wind start pretty heavy on Thursday morning, die down a little bit Thursday afternoon, but we still have gust 14 miles per hour plus. And if we go down to February, Friday, February 10th, let's try that. We actually see really significant winds in the morning and not as much in the afternoon. So while the wind is heavier both mornings, I'm not really sure we get a huge edge here. The wind is a little bit less Friday afternoon, so maybe that's the way to go. We'll monitor this forecast throughout the next 8 hours or so and see if that impacts how we play our classic contest. But for showdown contests, round one and round two, it appears that there's going to be a pretty decent edge for the golfers playing in the afternoon because we have 20 mile per hour gusts until 10 or 11 a.m. or so. So that's a pretty big deal. And again, if you get the golfers in the afternoon, not have to deal with the wind's not going to affect too much here. It's not like Pebble Beach last week for sure. But any edge we can get in showdown, we'll certainly take it. And again, let's monitor to see if this flips or changes. We do have a normal wave AM, PM golfers this week, unlike the last couple of weeks with the amateur pairings and the course rotations. So maybe that changes things. So we'll have to monitor throughout the evening. All right, let's move on to the betting markets here. Again, one of our favorite segments on the show, and talk about any golfers who have seen their odds to win increase at all of the sharp sports books that we monitor. These golfers are making the cut at an insane rate, and they're finishing top 5, top 10 at an insane rate as well. And the last few weeks, if you've been watching these videos, there may have been some names that you haven't recognized or names that you may have been surprised to hear. This week, 2 names on the list in particular are studs and actually have a little bit lower ownership. And then we have 2 names that may surprise you. One maybe not so based on his finish last week, but definitely a name that will surprise you. First player that has gotten hit at all the sharp sports books. He is the most expensive player in the field, and that is Jon Rahm. All 3 or all 4 of the sharp sports books that we monitor, his odds to win have improved a little bit, but that's a lot when your odds to win are already pretty low, as it is for Jon Rahm. One of the highest players on the planet, was in contention, could have easily won 3 straight tournaments had it not been for that one bad round at the Farmers. But Jon Rahm is going to be a sharp sportsbook, sharp overlay, trifecta, whatever you want to call it. He's one of the plays this week on the list. So we love to see that. And I will mention, let's go to the Occupy model really quickly. Remember, if you're not familiar, this ranks every golfer at FanDuel and DraftKings. And if we sort by projected ownership, and we look at golfers that are projected, again, this is just Wednesday afternoon. There will be a final ownership update later this evening. But as of now, 12 golfers projected for 14% or higher ownership. The top 4 or so are all guys under 10K. And this goes back to the star-studded field. earlier to start the season, we had a couple of studs in the field. They were priced over 10K and weaker fields beyond that. So all the ownership was concentrated on the studs. Guys like John Rahm was getting 25% plus, and the field was building more stars and scrubs. Just had to get the studs into their lineup. This week, however, because we have guys like Cam Young, we have guys like Patrick Cantlay, Tom Kim, Morikawa, under 10K, and in Cam Young's case, under 9K, very balanced field, and the field is going to build more balance as a result. So the repercussions of that is we get guys like John Rahm at 18% when we've been playing John Rahm at 25, 30, 35% in some cases. So we actually get lowered ownership on Rahm, and he's an overlap play. I mean, I haven't been playing Rahm much this year, and I've been paying for it. So I can't wait to play him this week and have and have him miss the cut. But it looks like a great week for John Rahm in a perfect spot. All right, let's go back to DraftKings here. The next guy, also a stud, just briefly mentioned him, was Colin Morikawa, 9,700. All of the sharp sports books have moved his odds to win. They've gotten some action, whether it's from the same group or different groups. They believe that his odds to win now should be shorter than what they opened at. So Colin Morikawa, another overlap play. Now for the cheaper guys that may surprise you, one is Keith Mitchell, who really didn't putt that well last week in the final round at least. Finished fourth at Pebble Beach. He's going to be pretty popular this week. If we go back to the model, we see 17% projected ownership for Keith Mitchell, one of the highest in the sub 8K range. And yeah, that's obviously, we don't like playing chalky guys that low, but we have the betting market backing us up. It makes us a little more confident. Not a great rating in the model from Keith Mitchell. I imagine this has a lot to do, his ownership just in general has a lot to do with his play from last week. Again, we're going to play the trifecta guys, these overlap guys, but I'm a little concerned based on just where he finished last week and his popularity at his price point. Instead, I would just much rather play the fourth and final overlap play as of now. Again, this may change and there may be more added, and maybe one of these guys will be removed. Later this evening, I'll post an update in our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. But the final player that has gotten their odds to win moved at all the sports books in their favor, also finished great last week, is Bo Hostler. Finished 11th, probably could have finished a little better, but T11 last week at Pebble Beach. And unlike Keith Mitchell, let's clear the filter here, and we see Bo Hostler, we have him projected for just 3% on DraftKings, 3% on FanDuel. On a week where it's really difficult to find sub 5% plays for our tournament lineups, Bo Hostler checks that box. Now, the model doesn't like it. Some of the metrics don't like it. But groups that are smarter than us seem to like it. And we'll take that all day. And when we get the overlap plays that have been making the cut, overlap plays that have been finishing T20, T10 more frequently than they should be based on their DK ownership, we're going to play those guys. And so Bo Hostler is one of the few sub 5% plays that make a ton of sense this week based on what the betting markets are telling us. All right, let's transition here. And we already talked about the chalk a decent amount. And let's go back here and let's sort by 14% or higher projected ownership. There's not much else to say outside of there's a different dynamic this week than there has been in weeks past. Again, Cam Young, Cantlay, Kim, Morikawa, all tied or near the top of the projected ownership this week, and they're sub 10K. And then we have the 10K guys like Rory, John Rahm, Sungjae, underpriced according to what the field is thinking. And then we have the cheaper guys like Keith Mitchell, Brian Harman, Jason Day, rounding out this group. So this group here is what most of the field is going to build around in cash games, in smaller contests. And so just be cognizant of that. The balanced build, and Niramata, our PGA DFS writer, wrote this in the Daily Plug, in fact, that the balanced build is the way to go in cash games this week in low-risk lineups. But as we venture out into small field GPPs, as we venture out into high-risk, large field GPPs, satellites, other types of contests in that same regard, we're going to be looking to fade some of these guys and play lower-owned options instead. Which brings me to the 5% play section of the show as we close this out. As we change this filter here to just guys 6% or less, not a ton of interest here. We have some guys, obviously, that have played well recently. Taylor Pendrith made that great charge in round 4 last week. Other than that, it's tough to find reasons to play these guys. And I'm always going to be of the belief, and we usually get these questions during our live Q&A shows, especially before the majors. People say, hey, Brian, I like this guy. What do you think? And my answer always is, if you can find a qualitative reason to play a golfer who's sub 5%, something the field is overlooking, go for it. It's hard to find, especially on these weeks, hard to find golfers that fit that mold. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. Obviously, we have the Bo Hostler play at sub 5%, but this week, go 6%. Hopefully you won't crucify me. But Shane Lowry at 6%. He is the cover boy of the Daily Plug this week. Actually just broke up with his long-term caddy. And Niramata in the plug actually points out that sometimes that can provide a spark to veteran golfers. Lowry checks a lot of boxes this week. He's top 7 in OF Index, our Occupy model. And so Lowry, who checks all these boxes at just 6%, again, it's tough to find guys in this range that check that many boxes. So Lowry, Bo Hostler are two guys that we're looking at under 6% this week. Save me a little bit here. I know we say under 5%, but we're going to go under 6% this week. Shane Lowry and Bo Hostler. And again, this could change. This probably will change. So make sure you check back later this evening for the Wednesday update in the PGA Plug. Niramata puts his final thoughts and betting market notes in there. It'll be updated 4 p.m. Eastern. The Occupy model will have a final ownership update tonight. It'll be updated throughout the day, or throughout the next couple of days for Showdown. So make sure you check that out. And our lineup builder, build up to 300 PGA DFS lineups using our optimal lineup criteria. Can't beat it. So again, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you made it this far and you like the content. Let you know when we upload these videos every single week. Super Bowls this week, lots of Super Bowl content, so make sure you subscribe to get access to those. Give us a thumbs up if you appreciate the content and want us to continue to make these PGA videos every single week. And any questions, you can always comment on this video, and I'll get back to you before the slate starts tomorrow morning. The best way to get in-depth answers, get the last-minute updates, chat with other members of the community, sweat the cut with us is our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. All the links for everything I described here is in the description below. And good luck at the Waste Management Phoenix Open.